plain, and I've been there, covered in wild fennel. It grows like weeds there. And that is how the Battle of Marathon became the field of fennel. So the true etiology of the word is fields of fennel. So if any of you have a bumper sticker on the back of your car that says 26.2, you need to cross that out and write fennel. But I'm Greek American, and I want to tell you a little bit about my upbringing. So I was raised in a Greek household, and as I got old, I went to Greek school, I went to Greek church. As I got older, I started to think the Greeks are a little bit different, they're a little strange. And as I got older, I thought they're kind of weird, actually. These Greek people are weird. And if you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you know firsthand they're very weird. In fact, I've got my father and my mother here. So Fotini and Papu, can you raise your hand? They follow me everywhere I go, which is great. But I pretty much rebelled against being Greek. I thought, you know what, I'm not Greek. This is where the lineage of being, the Hellenic lineage gets cut off, and we finally adapt to our American way. And we largely have. But as I grew older, I started to embrace my Greekness a little bit more. And I thought, I've got to go to Greece. I've traveled all around the world. I've been on all 7 continents twice now, and I've never been to Greece. So I thought it's time to go to Greece. And for one reason or the other, I always put it off. And I thought, there's never going to be a great time to go anywhere with your schedule these days. So let's just book a ticket and go to Greece. So I booked a flight, and the flight was due to leave on Sunday afternoon. Well, Sunday morning was the Chicago Marathon. And since I'm there in Chicago, I got to run the marathon, right? Like tonight, I got to go for a run. So I ran the Chicago Marathon. I went and threw all my clothes, sweaty clothes, in my suitcase, headed for the airport, didn't even shower. I got on the flight, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be able to sleep this whole flight. It's great, I'm tired. Well, we sat on the tarmac for 2 hours without moving. Needless to say, I missed my connection in Amsterdam, so I sat for another 6 hours in Amsterdam, waiting to get a connection to Athens. And when I finally got to Greece, I, as you can imagine, was completely exhausted. I mean, I hadn't slept in 2 days, and all I could think about was just, finding my hotel and crawling into bed. But instead, I want to read to you an excerpt from my book of what happened when I arrived in Greece. Drawing the hotel blinds closed for some darkened slumber, I glanced out the window briefly, and what I saw sent shivers down my spine. I know that sounds cliche, but that is exactly what happened. For there, in the background, perched prominently upon a rocky, high plateau, sat the gleaming white pillars of the Acropolis. Suddenly, everything changed. I no longer wanted sleep. When a place calls to you like this, you must answer to its summons. Lacing up my running shoes, I slipped out the door. The rise up to the Acropolis was steep, yet labor did I not. Upward to the Parthenon I climbed. Sorry, I kind of got the book all wet. Upward to the Parthenon I climbed. Reaching the apex of these hallowed grounds, I turned toward the setting sun, and the gods spoke to me. For a suspended moment of time, for a suspended instant, time didn't just stand still, but seemed to move in reverse, like the sands in an hourglass, flowing upward, history unwinding. What was causing these remarkable sensations? Then, abruptly, it all became crystal clear. An unmistakable conviction emerged from the tumult, and I knew with all certainty the root cause of these intensely rousing feelings. I had come home. And I go on to explain that at that moment I realized that I'd always been meant to be standing in that place. And it was the strangest sense that I'd ever had. It was a spiritual moment of knowing where you're supposed to be. And I doubt many people ever feel this way. I doubt if I hadn't gone to Greece, I would ever have felt that way. So that was my christening to returning to the motherland. I went on to work with a gentleman by the name of Paul Cartledge, who's the foremost authority on ancient Greek culture. And he works at Cambridge University, and he helped me dig into the history and the lore and the actual story of the marathon. And what I learned is that the marathon wasn't just the marathon. The story we runners are left with is that somehow the Greeks defeated the Persians at the Battle of Marathon, and this runner, Phidippides, right? You say Phidippides, the Greeks say Phidippides, they said you must run to Athens to announce the victory. So he ran 26.2 miles to Athens. He burst into the Acropolis and he hailed, "Niki, Niki, your victory, victory, we are victorious." And then what happened? He died. He died. It wasn't a very happy ending. But what I learned is that that was only part of the story. The deeper story is that when the Persians invaded at the Bay of Marathon, the Athenians realized that they were badly outnumbered and there was no way they would win. They'd be slaughtered if they tried to take on the Persians. So if you've seen the movie 300, who's kind of like the most badass fighting force in ancient Greece? Yeah, the Spartans. Yeah, have you seen it? We are Sparta. This is Sparta. So what they said to Philippides is that you've got to run to Sparta to recruit the Spartans into battle with us. Now Sparta is no short distance. It's 153 miles away. And as Herodotus explains it in the histories, is that he arrived in Sparta the day after setting out, which means within 36 hours, apparently, he got from Athens to Sparta. So 153 miles in 36 hours, a day and a half of nonstop running. And the name Philippides, the literal translation is "spare the horse." Yeah, spare the horse. Because he was a professional runner. He was a hemerodromos, as they call him, an all-day or a day-long runner. And this is what they trained to do. The Greeks thought that their strategic advantage was that they could disseminate information quicker than anyone else because they had these runners that could run faster than a horse. And if you've ever been to Greece and seen some of the rocky, mountainous terrain, you know that it is possible for a man to scale some of these peaks where a horse would have to be on all fours and could never make it. So that is the true story. From that legend, a modern-day race called the Spartathlon was born. And the Spartathlon is just that. It's a 153-mile foot race from Athens to Sparta. And I decided I was going to try to do this race. The race is very, very difficult. Bob has done the race twice, so he knows. He can attest to it. Yep. It's a really difficult race. And part of the reason it is so difficult is that they have very strict cutoff times because they want to stay with historical records. So for instance, you have to be to a city called Corinth, which is 50.22 miles from the start. You have to reach that point within 9.5 hours, as you know, which is a fairly aggressive clip. But it's not just regular running conditions. I mean, it's the southern Mediterranean heat. There's rolling hills. There's traffic to contend with. It's not an easy 50.22 miles. And the other thing is that you don't want to get there anywhere close to the cutoff time because these aggressive cutoffs continue the entire pace of the race. So it's not an easy race, and I had even made the challenge a little bit more intimate and personal in that I decided to try it using only ancient Greek foods that the hemerodromos. Yeah. I'm glad you're laughing because I wasn't. So I ate only olives, figs, cured meat, and this stuff they call pastilli, which is it's sesame seed, kind of ground sesame seed and honey. Yeah, so it's like an energy paste. And I only drank water. I didn't use any sort of electrolyte replenishment, no Gatorade, no gels or goo packs or anything like that, no athletic food. And the water also is warm, as you know, there's not a lot of ice in Greece. Yeah. So the race was going pretty well for me, actually. I got to Corinth just fine. I got there in about 8 hours, so I had quite a buffer. But then, slowly the food started catching up with me. And I realized that you can only eat so many figs in a 24-hour period. So I had some problems. And I won't go into detail here, but it wasn't pretty. But by about mile 93, there's another aid station. The wheels had come off, as they say. I had pretty much disintegrated. And it was at a point, there was an aid station that was set up in a taverna, because everything of greatness takes place in the Greek taverna. And when I left that taverna, I thought, I can barely get down the block. How am I going to make it another 63 miles? So I'll read to you how I felt as I exited that taverna. Exiting the taverna, I noticed another runner lying on the sidewalk near a ditch. He was flat on his back with his hands folded neatly across his chest, like a pharaoh inside a tomb. His crew shook their heads as I ran past. It appeared he wouldn't be going anywhere soon, probably not at all. This wasn't the most encouraging parting sight to behold as I set out to confront the toughest section of the course. There are 3 capitalized letters no racer wants appearing next to his or her name on any race result, and they are DNF, did not finish. But in a race of this intensity, DNF can take on an entirely different meaning, did nothing fatal. As I started the approach to Mount Parthenon, I wondered to what extreme I was willing to push myself to reach Sparta. How far down was I willing to plunge into the murky nadir that separates consciousness from unconsciousness? How far would I go? The answer was clear. Phidippides would stop at nothing, nor would I. Death before DNF. So I got to a point where I just committed and said, I've got to finish this race. It became more than just getting that belt buckle or getting that medal around my neck. It became very personal. And I had to dig deeper than I've ever dug to get to the finish line. And I don't want to spoil it, but I will read a couple of the passages. I think they kind of sum up the Spartathlon. If you want to run, run a mile. If you want to experience a different life, run a marathon. If you want to talk to God, run an ultra. To finish the Spartathlon, you must give yourself up to it entirely. You must be willing to push yourself to a place where there is nothing left. And I pushed myself there. And I think, Bob, I don't know, what was your race experience like? You have to, I mean, the race demands it from you.
It's like nothing else. Yeah.
Well, the other thing about the Spartathlon, which is unique in any race I've done and unique to any race in the world, is that you wear a timing chip because you're going over timing mats. But to finish the race, there's no finish line. There's nothing you run under. In the main square of Sparta, there's a towering bronze statue of King Leonidas, the king of Sparta. And you finish the race by touching his feet, by reaching up and touching his feet. And so there's a picture in the book. I did finish the race, but it melts you. It's like nothing else. You break down, you cry. Everyone I saw finish, touch his feet, cried, and then they got dragged up to the medical tent. But I'll finish with just one final passage, and then I'll open it up to some questions. I promised I would keep this to a 10K talk, not an ultra marathon. The Spartathlon had been the best race of my life and the worst race of my life, just as Greece is both heartwarming and heartbreaking. I came seeking struggle and adversity, and the race gave me these things completely. Yet it also gave me something far more valuable, the understanding that even in the midst of catastrophic ruin, a man can rise from the dust and once again gradually resume putting one foot steadily in front of the other and carrying on. The Greeks have known this since antiquity, and the Spartathlon embodies all that which makes life worth living. Long live Phidippides, the fabled Athenian Greek foot herald, and long live Greece. Thanks, you guys. Questions?
Well, there was one book, oh no, oh dear. Avoiding this. This is impressive to me just because I also read a book called The Lure of Running, I think.
The Lure of Running, yep,
Yeah.
I read that book as well.
It was his training for this same race, right?
It was a different race. It was the Comrades.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
but
I
it's-
thought
yeah.
it was the same race.
It's a race in South Africa. It's a little bit shorter, but it's a grueling race as well.
Yeah, so, just curious. It was curious that, because he went very deep into all that the training did for him, for the race. So, I thought it was the same race, so I don't have a question anymore.
But, I mean, I'll tell you some of the ways I train. I mean, I'll just kind of run with your questions.
Yeah.
So, my wife Julie is here as well. Julie. One time we were driving home from seeing my daughter down in Santa Barbara where she was going to college, and we got to Gilroy, And I said, you know, Julie, I think I'm going to run home. She said, okay. Do you have enough food? Do you have your headlamp? I said, yeah, I got it all. So she let me out of the car, and I basically started running at, I think it was like, what was it, 2, 3 in the afternoon? And I got back to Marin, I don't know, 10 or 11 the next morning. So I just ran straight through the night, right past the bookstore here. Yeah. And that's kind of how I trained. That was like an 82-mile run. So I did a lot of stuff like that. To be honest, though, there's a race called the Western States 100-mile endurance run, which is up in this, here at Lake Tahoe. And a lot of you have heard of that. And there's a saying there that I think is very telling, and that is, you run the first 50 miles with your legs, and the next 50 miles with your mind. So I think finishing an ultra is more a mental battle than a physical battle, because your body at some point is just completely rendered useless almost. And it's always amazing to me to be standing at the start of an ultra marathon and look at some of the people, because some of them don't look necessarily that fit. Yeah, it's like, they don't look necessarily that fit, but you get out there and they are just tough as anything, as nails. I mean, the grit and the resolve is remarkable. So I think it's more the mental attributes than the physical ones that really get someone to that finish line.
Why are you barefoot?
Because I don't know if you hear when I did the intro, but I just flew in from New York, and a buddy of mine said there's a group run at Fleet Feet. My socks, my shoes are soaking wet. It was just uncomfortable. Yeah.
I wondered if your feet got so worn out when you ran that you just wanted to give them a break or something.
No, in fact, don't look at my feet. I hope there's no pedicurists in there, because it's not a pretty sight. I got all my I've got 9 toenails. Yeah.
I understand that there's something physically unique about you that allows you to do ultramarathons. Can you tell us about what is unique about you physically?
So the question is there anything unique about me? I've been tested quite a bit. There's a couple things that they think help. One is that my biomechanics are very good. So when I'm running, when they put me on a treadmill and they analyze my foot strike, I don't pronate or supinate. I kind of just run perfectly as a runner should. And your alignment is hereditary. You inherit that from your parents. They say the best thing you can do as a long distance runner is to choose your parents well. So, well, my dad is a runner as well. And this is my first experience with marathoning. He ran the inaugural LA Marathon, which was back in 1985. And he told my mom and I'll never forget this, he said, at mile 20, I'm going to be really hurting, so tell me I look good and to keep going. So we were waiting at mile 20. He came running up. My mom looked at him. She said, man, you look horrible. Why don't you stop? He did. I gotta be honest. But the other thing is, I don't seem to accumulate lactic acid. So there's a substance called, it's a byproduct of cellular respiration, of like muscle exertion. So if you've ever lifted weights, for instance, say you're doing like reps of, barbell reps of curls with your bicep, it gets to a point where you're kind of, you're feeling that burning sensation, that pain, and you got to put the weight down. You just can't keep going. If you put the weight down, you wait for a couple minutes, you can pick it back up and resume doing more sets, and then you feel that same burning, and you got to put it down. That doesn't seem to happen to me. So they put me on a treadmill, and they said this experiment will take like 10 to 15 minutes, and 2 hours later, they said, we still can't get you to accumulate any lactic acid. I mean, this is crazy. And I had to go pick up my son from school, so I just told him I gotta go. But all endurance athletes have an adaptation where they can buffer lactic acid, clear it out of their system more quickly than just a layperson, but they've never seen anything like with what they measured in me. Yeah.
My question kind of goes along with that. I was going to say, is your lack of injuries just dumb luck, or do you think there's something more to it?
So, I mean, knock on wood, I've never had an injury in all my running career. Yeah, I know, and I've run about, back a napkin, over 100,000 miles, which is like, 4 loops around the earth. You should never say that, though, 'cause I'm going to trip when I walk up the stairs and break my leg. But I also do a lot of cross training. I don't just run, and I think that only running is a recipe for overuse injuries. So I never just sit still. In fact, I don't do something that all of you are doing right now. I never sit down. My whole office is set up at waist level. So like when I wrote this book, if I wasn't running and dictating into my iPhone, I was standing up and typing. And so I always walk during the day. I've got a pull-up bar in my office, a sit-up mat, so I'm constantly cycling through sets of pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, dips, and these things called burpees. So it's HIIT training. It's like a 15-minute routine. It's high-intensity interval training, and I do about 5 or 6 reps a day, as well as running. So I try not to use weights too much because I don't want to bulk up. That's not so great for running, but I definitely want to make sure I've got a strong core and other strong leg muscles to support my running. Uh-huh.
So what did you learn about life with all the runnings that you've done?
I can go back to, there's some Greek quotes that I think sum up life that I really like. I mean, there's one by a guy named Aeschylus, and he said, today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. So running is just kind of, it's just a release, right? I mean, it's kind of senseless. It makes no, it's a simple act, but it's profoundly powerful for some reason. I think the other thing I've learned is I enjoy being bored. I think we should be bored. I mean, in this day and age, how many people are ever bored? I mean, we've got screens. We're constantly, getting tweets, getting texts, being bombarded with news ads, everything else. And just to go run and be bored and just be in your own head for a while is incredibly rejuvenating. It just cleanses the soul. So those are a couple lessons I've learned. Yeah. The other lessons I've learned is don't eat too many figs in any 24-hour period. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I mean, what about your regular diet, your normal diet, in your training regimen, and how that contributes to what you do?
Yeah, so people change, and my diet has changed. I mean, when I wrote my first book a decade ago, I'll never live down the story of ordering a pizza on the run. I was running this 200-mile relay race solo. It's a 12-person relay, but I don't have 11 friends, so I just thought I'd do the whole thing myself. And I was out in Marin County in the middle of the night. There was no crew around. There was no 7-Elevens or anything out there, but I had a credit card and a cell phone, so I ordered a pizza. And I had the guy deliver it to me as I was running. And I got the Hawaiian style. Like, I thought the pepperoni was gonna be too spicy. And then I just rolled into this big Italian burrito, and I just mowed like as I ran, and just got all over me. It was so sloppy. It was really good. So I used to eat just anything. I just thought calories are good, any kind of calories. But now I've completely refined my diet. So I really don't eat anything processed or refined. Nothing that goes through a machine. Only eating things that a caveman could eat. Something you could pick from a tree, dig from the earth, or catch with your bare hands. And I just feel so much better that way. I feel like my energy levels are really consistent throughout the day. I don't have spikes and troughs in my my blood sugar. There's a guy that I just admired a lot, a mentor of mine, Jack LaLanne, and he said, if man makes it, don't eat it, and if it tastes good, spit it out. Yeah.
Can you talk about the 50 marathons in 50 days in 50 states? What was the thought process behind that?
So there's this club of people that have run 50 marathons in all 50 states. And I heard a guy talking at a Marathon Expo, and he was talking about this this achievement. And I thought, man, I really want to do this. Not only did I want to see every state, I thought, I didn't even know there was a marathon, an organized marathon in every state. So I asked him, how long did it take you to achieve this? And he said it took 8.5 years. And I thought, well, geez, my kids have 50 days off from summer school, so. But I thought I want to see if I can do this in 50 straight days. And did I have doubts? I had a lot of doubts. Like I didn't know going into it whether 5 marathons down I would not be able to walk. But I just figured just be the best that you can and just try your hardest every day and let's see what happens. And there were moments where I'll never forget Marathon 19. So I'd run a marathon in Hawaii, taking a red eye to Arizona. Hawaii was really hot and humid, one of those days where the trade winds just weren't blowing. So it was about 85 degrees, 90% humidity. Got on an all-night flight, got to Arizona, and it was about 105 in Arizona. And I got to the midway, and this marathon in Arizona was on this road that was so flat and straight that you could see, and it was an out and back, you could see the turnaround cone 13.1 miles from the distance from the start. But it was like the Blair Witch running. I'm running toward this thing, it's just not getting any closer. And when I turned the corner, I thought, I'm going to pass out right here. How am I going to get to the finish line? And then I thought, and then you've got 30 more marathons. You can make 31 more marathons you can make to the finish line. And at that point, I just said, you know what, don't think about, just put the blinders on about the future. Just worry about being in the present moment of time. Just be the best you can right now. And that got so granular. I just said, just put one foot in front of the next to the best of your ability. Don't think about anything else. Just take it one step at a time. You know, there's the old saying, you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I figured that's the way I'd approach it. I think the 50th marathon of all was the most telling because it was the New York City Marathon, and it was the fastest of all 50. So I ran New York City in 3 hours and 30 seconds, which is pretty fast. You know, it's pretty fast just for a regular marathon, let alone after 40. I'll never forget, I got to the finish line, and this race director comes running over to me, and he starts, you know, hugging me, saying, "That was amazing. I can't believe you finished this 50th marathon so fast. It was incredible. Were you trying to beat Lance?" This was the year Lance Armstrong ran his marathon, and I was like 20 seconds behind Lance. He looked horrible, by the way. He was dead. But I said to the guy, you know, I didn't think I'd be anywhere close to Lance. I had no desire to beat Lance. You know, I wasn't being competitive in any way, except the only worst person I wanted to beat was P. Diddy. You know, Puff Daddy, he ran the marathon that year. And I saw him at the start, and he's like surrounded by this big posse of guys. He's got all these, you know, gold chains on. I thought, if P. Diddy beats me, even after 50 marathon, 40 marathon, I'd be so humiliated. So I slipped in ahead of P. Diddy, and everything's good. In fact, next weekend I'm running the New York City Marathon, and it's the 10-year anniversary of running 50 marathons. That just came to me, yeah. Is anyone else running in New York? You running in New York?
Oh, not running.
Oh,
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
Gee, thanks.
I'm from New York.
You're from New York, okay.
From that area, yeah.
Oh, you don't have a desire to run the New York City Marathon?
No.
No?
I've never run, no.
Okay.
That won't happen.
All right, that won't happen.
She's the one.
Okay. Oh, okay. She dragged you here, yeah. And my fellow Spartathlete.
Yes.
Yeah, so are you gonna go back to Spartathlon again?
Yeah, in fact, I'm planning on going back next year and really racing it hard. So,
Great.
yeah, I'm not going to eat figs and all of
Yeah.
cured meat. Yeah.
I'll see you there.
Yeah, are you going to go back?
I think so.
Yeah, so I mean, it's an event you'll never. Yeah, I mean, the one thing, there's a lot of aid stations set up along the course, so you don't really have to take anything. You can get aid along the way, and the volunteers. You know, a lot of these people are really impoverished. I mean, the Greek economy right now is you know, it's in a bad place.
Yeah.
They can barely feed their family, and they are out there taking care of these runners as though they're part of the family. And they're lancing blisters. I mean, these people are really in a bad place, and they're taking care of them just as though they're a family member. Yeah, so it's really heartwarming to watch that. Yeah.
Two questions. First one is, do you ever just go out for a 5-mile run? And if you do you still get your fix? Like, does it still satisfy you in some sort of way? Or do you have to always run 20 or 25 miles to?
No, I mean, that's what I love about running. I you know, even tonight, I only probably ran 6 miles, and it was fantastic. It just, yeah, I mean, I felt like I was going to fall asleep until I started running. And you know, I've slept maybe 3 or 4 hours in the past couple days, and all of a sudden I feel great. So, yeah, I just love to run.
Okay,
I mean,
that's-
further's better, but yeah.
And my other question is, do you do any interval training? Like, do you hit the track, or do you do tempo runs, or do you just run long?
No, I when I'm really ramping up for something, I have a training block I follow. So I work with the coach, and yeah, I do a lot of speed work and hill repeats and things like that. Yeah, it takes away some of the joy, I've got to admit. So I'm sponsored by Fitbit, and it's a great tracking device, and I can monitor pretty much everything I'm doing. I've got an optical heart rate sensor on. Some of the new sensors actually take blood lactate levels. They monitor your sweat rate, so you can tell if you're dehydrated or not. They're really incredible. Other days, I just unplug completely and just go running, and I don't pay attention to anything. I mean, if I feel like running fast, I run fast. If I feel like jogging, I jog, and those are almost more magical sometimes. Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Okay.
I'm just curious. I'm curious where your motivation comes from.
Pizza. I'm pretty self-motivated. I mean, running to me has never lost its magic. And the crazier the world becomes, the more I embrace running. It's relief. And I'm very much an introvert. So for an introvert, it's hard to stand in front of an audience. I mean, this is harrowing for me. And, you know, there's a lot of anxiety. And there's nothing I would love to do more than talk to everyone and then just go run back home to Marin. And that's just, well, I don't know, it's hardwired into me. I don't know why, but that's just my thing. And I think a lot of runners can relate to that on some level. Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of the guys I used to run with race. You know, they define running as racing, and that they just have a race calendar. And I say a lot of guys I used to run with, because a lot of them burn out. To me, running it can be, you know, when you talk about running, when you talk about two things. You can talk about running as racing, and the best runner is defined as the fastest runner, right? When we say who's the best runner, you think the fastest runner. But you can also look at as running as an art form, and you know, say who's the most prolific runner. And that's something I really aspire to be. I mean, I've run, you know, a marathon to the South Pole. I've run across the Gobi Desert. I just was a U.S. athlete ambassador. I ran 525 miles along the ancient Silk Road as a sports envoy for John Kerry called me. So I ran through Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. So I've done a lot of things with my running, and I've gone places I never thought I would go. And to me, that's it's just special. It's my identity now. It's what I've become. Yeah. And I also aspire to be a better writer. So if you find it time to read the book, let me know if you enjoy it, because I really did try to write this. It's a personal story, and there's a lot of pride that went into writing this book. And if you don't like it, the pages make good kindling for a fire. Or go have a nice bonfire in Santa Cruz with it. Yeah. Yeah, but thank you. Thanks for being out here. Yeah.
So much, Dean. Dean's going to be here to sign some books in the back, and just thank you so much for doing this. If you have any more questions, he'll be there to answer your question, and there's still some water, some wine, some food, so grab some snacks and hang out. Let's just give Dean one big round of applause.